Have they put you up in the MGM Grand or something?
That'd be nice.
I was kind of hoping that, but yeah, not to be.
Bellagio.
Hello, welcome back to RugbyPass Offload with me, Christina Mahan. And today I'm joined by Jamie Roberts and one of America's latest recruits, Chris Robshaw. So welcome to the show, Chris. How are you both?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me on. 7 a.m. over here, so a little bit of a time difference. But no, I've enjoyed it so far. It's nice to touch base with people back home. But yeah, it's definitely been an interesting experience so far.
Well, looking forward to hearing all about it, mate. I'm jealous of your tan. Looks half decent. You're currently in Vegas, so I understand. Is Vegas open?
Yeah, well, firstly, we were obviously San Diego Legion, but due to kind of COVID restrictions and COVID kind of stuff back in California, the whole team kind of, as some American sport does, just basically pick everything up and move to Las Vegas. So we've been in Vegas now for about 6 weeks. Yet to train on a rugby pitch with any markings or posts, which has been an interesting experience. A lot of kind of NFL pitches and all that. But yeah, Vegas is very much open. It's very much a different vibe to COVID in America. We played Austin in Texas a couple of weeks ago, and as we've gone in the hotel, we've all had our masks on and protective gear and all that kind of stuff. And someone in the hotel, as we've kind of crossed and passed, said, "You don't need a mask. Texas beat COVID." And we were like, "Yeah, I'm not sure, but okay." Yeah, it's just, but yeah, look, they wear their masks, but yeah, you can go to restaurants, you can eat out. The casinos are open. Everything's going to go. Just the volume of people probably isn't here. Yeah, it's definitely been different to the experience. The first 4 weeks I had living in San Diego, which was lovely. But we're enjoying it. It's starting to get hot though. It's 33 degrees at the moment. And I think it gets up to about 43, 45. So that's going to be a stretch when we get there. But no, I've enjoyed it so far. I think the biggest difference over here is the traveling, the amount of traveling we do. So our first game was at home to New York. Then we flew to Austin. Then we came back. Then we flew to Atlanta, came back. Then we flew. Then this weekend we go to Houston. So whereas in the UK or in England, we probably have our biggest trip is from London down to Exeter, which is 3.5, 4 hours in a bus. Here you're doing plus that and a flight kind of every other week. So that is a test on the old backs and the bodies. But I've enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, we'll get to that a bit later. But first of all, Jamie, you must be a very happy man with the Welsh Six Nations victory. Have you been chatting to any of the boys in the squad? Do you know how they got to celebrate the victory?
Oh, and like Christopher, I know you escaped over in the States. Yeah, no, I've spoken to a few of the lads. They're obviously delighted. It's all very different, wasn't it? I don't think probably had a load of beers together out in France, albeit that was probably a little bit deflated after they didn't win the slam. But yeah, no doubt they would have had a few cold ones in the changing room. But they had to wait a week, didn't they? They had to wait a week for that France-Scotland match, and obviously all reconvened at the Vale to meet the trophy mid-afternoon, and then back to work. All very strange, but look, it's probably one of the most frustrating things for the players is that they haven't been able to really celebrate winning that tournament together. Because you do, doing a campaign like that, you get really close to the lads, you go through a lot of hard work together. Obviously go through test matches together, and then not to celebrate when you win something must be extremely difficult. So you kind of feel for those lads, but that doesn't take away with what they've achieved, from what they've achieved over the last few months. It's been pretty special.
Were they able to get together and watch the Friday's game, or did they just reconvene on the Saturday?
I think what I understood, I think they just reconvened at the Vale on the Saturday. Some lads couldn't make it, as they were, based in England, maybe with other commitments. And yeah, I think they just reconvened on the Saturday, lifted the trophy, took a few photos, and then back they went back home. So yeah, all very weird. But I'm sure at some point down the track, those lads will share a few cold ones and reminisce over a pretty special couple of months. But yeah, hugely proud of the boys. I was talking to a few of the lads. They were a bit twitchy about that game on the Friday night. I think if France scored just before half time, it's a bit more twitchy, isn't it? But fair play Scotland doing a job.
It was class. And obviously we had Ryan on last week to chat through it, which is just so amazing for him. But now, Chris, what wasn't amazing is the fact that England sadly finished 5th. Like Jamie said, you were kind of lucky to escape it. You're on the other side of the world now. But I suppose, as watching on as a fan, what were the things that you kind of found most frustrating with England?
It was a massively tough campaign for England, I think. And I know other teams dealt with it probably a lot better than English players did and the English team did. And I think in terms of that COVID bubble, players only being able to go home once or twice throughout the 2-month campaign is definitely a factor, especially when things aren't going well. I think when you're winning and stuff like that, you get momentum, you guys are happy, you don't mind being in those tough kind of places. I think as soon as it goes the other way and things don't go as smoothly, then yes, I think it does affect it. I think you could probably look at some of the guys not being match sharp. I know they're match sharp towards the end of the tournament, but those guys potentially not match sharp. But in saying that, these guys, and we look at that kind of Saracens contingency, and they're the spine of the team. They're all world-class players who would get into a lot of world-class teams. And I always remember speaking to Eddie, and he said, his big thing is, if you have one bad game, that's fine. But if you have 2 or 3 bad games, tough decisions and tough conversations have to be made. And I think all those players did get better throughout the tournament as soon as they got a little bit more match sharp. But unfortunately, I was in the 2018 side where we finished 5th as well. A lot of other kind of older heads, similar to what they are now. And unfortunately, after that, there were a lot of changes. A lot of kind of young guys coming in and a lot of young guys kind of coming in and really taking that step up. And I wouldn't be surprised now, especially if there is a summer tour with the Lions going on. I'm not sure what the plans are with England Rugby, if they are going to go somewhere or play someone. But you would have hoped now this is a perfect opportunity to almost start fresh. To get, I mean, I would love to see the likes of Marcus Smith. I know I'm probably a bit biased being from Harlequins and Jamie knows him well, but someone like him or Sam Simmons and these type of guys who have done it for the club and potentially are worth that opportunity. And I think with stuff like that, it's easy for me to say it, or Jamie or yourself to say, oh, we think this person should be in. But at the end of the day, it only really matters if one person likes you. And if that one person doesn't like you or want to pick you, then you're not going to play for your country while they're in charge. So look, hopefully we'll see a change of this England side. And I think looking back to the French game, the best thing that happened in that game, I think, was France scoring early when they played England, because it forced England to go an all-out attack and they had to go after a chaser game. And it was the best I think England actually played. Whereas when they're on top, they like a physical game, they like to play a territorial game. And international rugby is very much about that. But I think that France game forced the guys just to play a bit more again.
And I suppose you kind of said there about freshening up the squad a little bit. Would you consider maybe freshening up the coaching squad as well, or would you just focus on the players for now?
I haven't actually been involved with this coaching group. I could see a couple of changes from an outsider's perspective, but not known. I don't think Eddie's going anywhere. I think Eddie is still very much the man to kind of taking them forward and continue to get the best out of these guys. And yes, there is a blip, and he's had this blip before in 2018, hasn't he? And then went on to get to the World Cup final. We look back to that incredible game against New Zealand in the semi-final. So I very much believe he is the right man to take it forward. Do I think there'll probably be other changes? I think so. But I'm not sure who they'll be.
Robbo, you talk about 2018. Did you survive after that? When was your last cap for England?
So my last cap was the summer after that. So the summer after that, and then I got injured just before the following autumn series. And unfortunately, I did a knee, and it didn't clear up until towards the back end of the Six Nations. And then all of a sudden, someone else has come in, they're playing well, and you miss that opportunity. And you know how it is, especially with international rugby. You give anyone a glimpse, and they take it, they grab it with both hands. They've been waiting in the wings, haven't they? No matter what country, no matter what position, there's someone there. And it does move forward. And I think that's a very tough thing, that you kind of, when you kind of finish, you expect almost like a big fanfare or farewell, but it doesn't. It just kind of continues to move forward, and the machine and the team, and people only ever say you're custodian to the shirt of people before you. This is your time now, but then there'll be people a long time after you. And it's really trying to enjoy it at the time. And everyone always says, oh, you got to enjoy it. But when you're in there and it's a pressured environment, it's tense, you're playing against rivals, England, Wales, all that kind of stuff. You only kind of really enjoy those moments straight after the game where you've won or whatever, and then you're back into the next game.
Yeah, the reason I asked that, mate, was just about that change in 2018 after they did lose. Did you see what processes did England go through on that summer tour? Did they pick new players? When you do think back, did they try to play a different way? Was there a different energy about the group because you had lost previously? Did they kind of this bounce back, right? We're coming out swinging.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of it, and you look back to that squad, and a lot of it, in all honesty, probably didn't happen until the World Cup camp and the build up to that, because you look at the likes of Dylan Hartley was involved. I was kind of in and out of training. A Mike Brown, a James Haskell, a Danny Kerr, all these type of big experienced players who were very heavily involved under the Eddie regime were gone. And I think that's the thing with Eddie. He doesn't have an issue making these tough decisions. If it's the right thing for the team, he'll make it. Or if he feels it's the right thing for the team, he'll make it. And personally, I couldn't argue with that. I looked at Curry, I looked at Underhill, and look, of course, I wanted to go to the World Cup, and I would have given everything to have another opportunity and all that kind of stuff. But those two were both absolutely incredible. They were superb, and even now they're England's best back row for sure. I think with Eddie, and what I admire the most about him, he's a perfectionist. He works hard, and yes, he challenges the players, he challenges the coaches, but he challenges himself as well. So little things like, in between every camp, he'll go away and study a different organisation. So he'll go to watch the Tour de France, the hardest endurance event in the world, and think, what recovery are they doing to be able to ride 100 miles every day for 3 weeks or whatever it is. And I remember he went to go and watch Pep Guardiola when he was at Bayern Munich and saw the intensity at which they trained at and brought that back. And he brings all these little things back and he puts it into what he wants and what he needs. And even when we were kind of building up to the World Cup, he said, everything's about the World Cup. Judge me on the World Cup. Judge me on that. So we would go into an autumn camp, train one way. We would then go into a Six Nations campaign, train a completely different way. Then we go on a summer tour and train a different way again. Because he's always looking for that perfect remedy of what. And he was half a game away from winning the World Cup, whatever it is. They were slightly off or a game away. And yeah, he's definitely always looking to improve. And I know he'll take this loss hard and this kind of Six Nations campaign very hard in itself. But I know, knowing the man and knowing the type of person he is and the person he is, he'll want to leave no stone unturned to why it happened and how does he rectify it.
Yeah, that leaves me a little bit scared because any wounded side often bounce back stronger. So yeah, it's good. Great to have that insight because yeah, that scares me now for England in 2023. Look, I agree with Chris. There has to be change. Like you can't go through a campaign like that without there being change. Whether that's playing squad, whether that's the way they want to play the game, or whether that's coaches. So there will be change. It's just a question of where. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they adapt. And reflecting Chris's words, I think as painful as it is for England in the present, it's going to stand them in good stead. They would have learned a lot about themselves over the last few months. And as I said, it's a bit scary moving forward because they will adapt, they will learn, and they will change.
Chris, as a back rower, were you shocked to see no Sam Simmonds?
No, I think look, he's a form player. He's playing well, but he doesn't fit the jigsaw. And every coach has a jigsaw in front of them, and every player is a piece. And sometimes your piece fits, and other times it doesn't. And maybe your piece fits a different coach. And down at Exeter, they love him and he plays well and he battles with. And I think with Sam, there's a perception because he's not, 130 kg and 6'4" and all that kind of stuff that he can't mix with the big boys. But you look at how powerful he is. You look at when he goes against the likes of Toulouse, who Jamie, you played them as well. Their pack is just monstrous. And he's making gain line after gain line and kind of making inroads and knocking people back and stuff like this. And sometimes perception plays on people's minds, I think, what certain people look like or do they fit the mold. But I would love to have seen them in there. Personally, I think when they're playing well, I still think the best back row is the Curry, the Underhill and the Vunipola. However, I would love to see Sam Simmonds on the bench for the last 20, 30 minutes, games open up, tired bodies out there. I think it'd be brilliant.
What do you reckon about his game that doesn't fit the jigsaw then? Because I completely agree with you. Whenever all test coaches sit down, they go, right, this is the way I want to play the game. This is the way I think we can win. What players can do that for me? What is it about his game? Is it his weight? Is it the punch at number 8? Is it collisions that Vunipola does offer?
I think it's that perception. Because, like I said, in games he does. He's hard to tackle. We've tackled him. He's got good footwork. He's powerful in the contact. But he doesn't look 6'4" and 130 kg. I honestly think that is the difference when people say, I want an international 8, who do you look at? You look at Funapolo, Falatar, Dwayne Vermeulen, Kieran Reid, these type of guys who are all that kind of build, aren't they? But then you look at Ben El can sit on the bench and he can cover all 3 positions. So why can't someone like a Sam Simmons come on? And because he has had that international experience, he has had that taste. And I think sometimes that's more frustrating as a player. You've had that taste. You want to be back there. You know, everyone's saying, oh, you should be playing. And it is tough not to get drawn into that.
That's brutal. Well, we've spoken about it many times on this podcast. So the less, the better for Sam Simmons, as Dylan puts it.
Oh, I was honestly thinking about this before we started. Like the amount of times that we do speak about Sam Simmons, you can almost create like a drinking game purely based on how many times Sam Simmons is mentioned per episode. We're big fans of Sam's. Well, look, Chris, I suppose when you played under Eddie, did you feel like he was just incredibly loyal to his specific, say, match day 23? And then if you weren't in that, it was almost impossible to break in or to get a look into that squad?
No, I think Eddie Jones is the best man manager I've ever worked with in terms of coaching and all that kind of stuff. And it's little things that people probably take for granted. It's stuff like in a normal time where we'll all be in a breakfast room, tables of 10, mixing, all that kind of stuff. He would walk in and acknowledge every single person in the room, whether it be his kit man, to his head coach, to an academy guy for the first time, to his captain. And he would have a little moment with everyone. But also he treats them differently. So someone like myself, he was always very honest. We'd have chats and that kind of thing. Someone like a James Haskell, who's a bit of a larger than life character, they would literally take the mick out of each other all day, and that would get the best out of him. Someone like a Johnny May, he gave him responsibility and empowered him, and that helped make him the player he is today. And I think there is things where he does treat people differently and he does test people, but he tests them to see if they're up to international rugby. That's what he's about. He's about making players better and ready to play international rugby. And I think with that, and I wouldn't say there's an us and them. I would say they're very much in it together. I remember we went to Australia in 2016, I think it was, and it was before Carl Sinclair and Ellis Gaines kind of broke in and started playing. They came, but Eddie said to them, "Look, in week 1, you're not going to play in this tour, but your job is to get the guys ready for the test every single day." So he literally let them loose, and it was like 2 cannonballs every single training session. But it gave us a right approach to be ready for the game, and we went down to win that series 3-0. And it's people like that who are so important to the squad, who might not necessarily play, but are hugely influential to preparing the guys well. So no, I definitely don't think there is an us and them, but there is a horses for courses, and some players fit certain molds and certain games.
And I suppose, well, my next question was, what was your relationship like with Eddie? But it seems to be a pretty positive one from kind of what you've just said there. But I suppose some people that we've had on the podcast have mentioned that, sometimes you might have a weird interaction, or, he would send texts at all hours. Did you ever experience anything like that with Eddie?
No, I've heard some of them, which are a little bit strange. No, look, I had probably an interesting start to my life with Eddie. During the World Cup, he kind of publicly came out and slated me a bit, and I was kind of in all honesty, I didn't think I'd play for England again after that. After that, we had a good sit-down chat. We had a drink together. We sat down for about an hour and a half, got to know each other, and then kind of he said, "Going to go away, work on these type of things, and if you can, there'll be a place for you in my team." I went away and worked on it, and he said, "Yes, there's a place for you in my team, but not as captain." And I was like, thank God, I'm looking forward to it. It's almost like it was a second life for me. And I'll always be grateful for Eddie for giving me that second opportunity to play for country. Because look, the World Cup didn't go well, and it was a hugely tough period. So to go there and then to play another, whatever it was, kind of 20, 25 games or so for my country under him. And he, like I said, he was always very honest with me. He never tried to muck me around. If I was playing badly, I remember he dropped me for one of the South Africa games, and he said, "You're just not playing as well as you normally do." And you can't really argue with that, because I wasn't. And I think with that, I had a huge amount of respect for him. Of course, I'll always be a bit gutted that he didn't take me to the next World Cup, and a bit resentful for that. But in saying that, I'm grateful that he gave me a second shot to play for my country.
Did he explain to you what his reason was as to why he wasn't going to take you to that, take you on that World Cup squad?
Yeah, there were some which I don't really want to go into, but like I said earlier, when I look to that squad now, and I look at the impact both Curry and Underhill had, and you can't argue with it. And I think from a personal point of view, in the build up to that, and unfortunately I missed the shop window in terms of the autumn and the Six Nations, but in that bit after, in kind of the run up to the club, I was playing well, and I left no stone unturned. I was kind of doing everything I could. I was playing well, preparing. And I think if I hadn't done that, and if I'd maybe been skipping the odd session or not doing this, then it may have been harder for myself to deal with. But because I know I gave it my everything, and then, like I said, my piece just didn't fit anymore. My piece didn't fit the puzzle. And I think as you do get older, you learn to deal with things a little bit different. You learn to just take it in your stride. Your skin is thicker, your shoulders broader. Don't get me wrong, it hurt like hell to miss out, and I was pretty upset. But you do move forward, I think.
Now, if you could go back and lead England once more as captain, what's the one thing that you would do differently?
Go for posts.
Do you want to answer that, or shall I? Yeah, look.
We're going to touch off that in a minute.
Bravo, I'm joking, mate.
It is true, and it is. No, in all seriousness, it is. Unfortunately, hindsight is a wonderful thing, and do we go back to that decision, go for posts, and give ourselves an opportunity to get through? Would we have got it? Who knows? But you potentially look at that opportunity and you try that, and I think that'd be the one thing that I always look back at my England career and definitely would try and change, because you don't know these butterfly moments, and hopefully that would have a big effect on the game and the result of the World Cup, and who knows where we'd be now. But that was definitely a big decision, and I think that World Cup is, I've moved a long way since, but it is a scar I'll always wear. Whenever we speak about it, whenever people talk about it, it's always a tough time for me, a tough time for a lot of those players. I remember actually when we played Wales in the first game post Six Nations back at Twickenham, the first game, and as you can imagine, there was a huge amount of speculation about the game. Is it a revenge mission? What about the World Cup? And there was so much, but I don't know, you probably don't remember it because you were on the positive side of it. But we won the game, and only just won the game in the end. I think George North literally millimetre of a toe went out, and luckily we won it in the end. And we're doing a lap of honour, and I just broke down in tears. I just had to get in the change room. I just had to get back in, and I just couldn't control myself. And all these emotions came out of me, and so many of you guys came up to me and just said, "Look, we didn't realise how much it affected you, and how much of the burden and toll it took on you." And me personally, I didn't share well enough. I was going through the motions as a club, put a huge match strain on, whether it's my wife, my friends, my family, teammates, probably. It was definitely a massively tough period for me.
See, from a colleague point of view, obviously I had massive empathy for that England side. At the moment, obviously you're delighted you win it. A little part of you is buzzing because you're knocked England out of home World Cup. But for every team that wins, another team loses. That's sport. And I wouldn't have known, when I reflect now, how much that probably affected you at Quins, because you put on a hell of a brave face. Like, obviously we shared lists every day. You were happy, you were bubbly and what have you. And I've read quite a lot of your stuff that you've come out recently and said that. So, huge respect for you to you for coming out and talking about it, because it's important. It's definitely important. And it probably ties back to what I spoke about earlier. It's often you have to go through those things in your life or in sport or whatever, and big losses to actually appreciate what winning takes. And as you said, you've mentioned that Wales-England game a year later. I can imagine the emotion, even winning that, or being the Six Nations, was pretty special.
Well, Chris, I just want to stay on that day for a second. So we're talking about that, the 26th of September, 2015. So Chris, can you take us through the emotions and memories that you have when you do look back on that day?
Yeah, look, it was, I think for me, the World Cup in particular, not just that day, but the World Cup for me was one of the highlights of my career. Leading England in the World Cup, that Fiji game, that kind of opening ceremony, going to Twickenham, the thousands and thousands of white shirts, the buzz going around, all that kind of stuff. It was what you dreamt about. And it was really the top of the mountain, the top of the peak, whatever you want to say. But then, that Wales game, the Australia game the following week, where we got beat pretty comfortably at the end, doing that press conference, probably 5 minutes after a final whistle of being knocked out of the home World Cup, with probably 200 reporters in the room and cameras and people taking pictures and all that kind of stuff, was the toughest thing probably I've ever had to do. And there was a huge kind of scale, and it's been the hardest period of my professional career, but also one of the top moments of my professional career as well. And I think with it, it's taught me a lot. It's taught me a lot about myself. It's taught me a lot about being there for other people who have been through the experience. And look, there's a number of things, and I've spoken about what kind of helped me get through certain situations and stuff like that in the past. And I think what it did teach me was the amount of people that reached out to me, because all my friends and family and all that kind of stuff were brilliant, but they didn't really understand what it was like, and they didn't really know. And I think the biggest thing that Sean Fitzpatrick reached out to me and he said, look, nothing anyone could do or say at the moment is going to make me feel good. But the sun will come up again. It might not be tomorrow. It might not be next week. It might not even be next month. But it will come up again and you will be okay. And I think, look, sometimes you got to grieve, but then you need to kind of move forward and it will be okay eventually. But it was the likes of like a Kevin Sinfield, a Delalio, a Alistair Cook, Dylan, like these type of international captains who had been there and done it before, who reached out to me. And it's now about using that experience and reaching out to other people who are going through that type of thing. Because unfortunately, you know what it's like to be now written about on the front and back of papers and not in a nice way. And you do learn to take it with a pinch of salt and avoid it and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes you can't avoid it. And I think for me now, if I see when it was similar to when England went down to Cardiff a couple of years ago and they targeted Carl Sinclair, and Carl was a Quins teammate of mine. And for whatever reason, the media got in his back and went after him and made him the scapegoat. And it's just reaching out to people like that and just being there for them because you have that understanding. And I'm sure, look, Jamie's been through incredible highs and lows as well. And I'm sure the people that have helped him the most are probably the people who have been through it as well.
I appreciate your honesty. And we'll move on. So I have a question about Stuart Lancaster. So obviously he's doing a brilliant job at Leinster. However, he had a very tough time from fans and the media as the England coach, especially in the Home World Cup. So can you tell me why things went so terribly wrong for him with England when he seems to be such a great coach?
Yeah, look, and as players, we have to take responsibility for that, myself included. And unfortunately, look, we weren't a bad time. We blinked at the wrong time. I think in that World Cup, whether it was pressure, whether it was little moments in big games go a long way. And unfortunately, we got them wrong. I got one wrong. Some other moments. And that's what it comes down to. And I think you look at the back of whenever big sports events don't go well, the head guy goes, the coaches go, lots of players go, and there is a massive transformation. But I'll always be incredibly grateful for Stuart for giving me the opportunity to making me a better player. And Stuart is a fantastic coach, and people are being reminded of it. I think they forgot about it. And actually, when I left Harlequins, I gave him a call, and we'd stayed in touch. We had swapped the odd messages and odd phone call here and there, but we probably chatted for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, just about everything about the last couple of years, about the World Cup. And it was great to properly reconnect rather than just the odd messages of well done when they've won stuff or vice versa. And it's great to see him doing so well. It's great to see people acknowledge that again, because it's tough. And unless you've been through that where people want your head, it's tough to see and appreciate what it is really like. And I think looking at what people say, and someone actually messaged me the other day, and I guarantee you, no one feels worse than the players, the coaches, whatever you're going to say to them. That's about you. That's about you getting your aggression out, you getting your thing out. For them, they feel bad enough. Like, honestly, I saw the stuff that went on to Liam Williams and the kind of abuse he got. And someone actually messaged me the other day and said, and apologised for a smirk and snarky remark they gave to me back in 2015 after the World Cup. And they didn't realise the effect it has on players, that the little things that you say can go a long, long way to really affecting people. And I only think now, and I know there's been a lot of talk about mental health and stuff like that, and I only really think now we're starting to really embrace that in the rugby, really get behind it and open. And there is a lot out there, but it's down to the individuals. And that's when I look back at myself, and there was stuff there, but I probably wasn't brave enough to go down that route and really explore it like I should have done. So I think when people are out there and they're trolling people, or they're giving someone sly remarks about not going well, trust me, that player feels worse and that coach feels worse than anything you can ever say, but it will have a lasting impression for sure.
But Chris, I know you said just there that, like, you know, you didn't explore it back then, but speaking about it now is just as important. And so I think it's great that you're kind of standing up and you're being an advocate, and, you know, you are sticking up and explaining that, you know, the players are people at the end of the day. So what you do say is going to affect them. So yeah, I think it's a really important message. And Jamie, I know we spoke about it before and you were kind of saying that's always going to happen with rugby, but something has to change in the way it's been handled.
Yeah, no, look, the way I see it is that, you know, we live in a business that's all based on opinion. You know, Robbo's already mentioned it. When it comes to coaches, you know, coaches will have opinion on players, press will have opinion on teams and players, fans will have opinion on everything. And, you know, I've got no problem with fans voicing their opinions on me personally or on my teammates, whatever, positive or negative. I've got no problem with that. But there's a line. And, you know, when that does become personal and when it becomes derogatory or what have you, there's a line, and it's just important that supporters realise that line. You know, if someone messages me saying, oh, you know, you played poorly today, whatever, that's part of the game. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. And I think any player who plays professional sport has to appreciate that, you know, you can't always live in the positive. There are going to be negatives, but as I said, there is a line and it shouldn't be crossed. And Robert's spot on. You know, it does affect you when you read that stuff. Some of the stuff is unacceptable that we've seen recently, and hopefully people learn from that.
Now, someone who was quite controversial and who was the shock inclusion in the 2015 squad was Sam Burgess. So, Chris, were you uncomfortable with him being drafted in ahead of players who may have deserved a place in the team a little bit more?
No, I don't think so. I think with Sam, and I know there'll always be things because he went back very quickly. It looked a bit wrong. But I think Sam, he was I don't know if Jamie knew him too well, but he was good. He was a great guy to have around. He was very knowledgeable. He was a good leader in his field and what he'd done. He was a pretty special player as well. And I think people forget that for the way he went back. And he was a great addition to that squad. He pushed us hard. He gave us different opinions. He gave us different perspective on things. And most importantly, he was a good player and earned his place. Yes, there was a media speculation about him and should he be there and has he gone at the expense of others. And look, when things don't go well, you pick things apart and you find things and you find holes and things that didn't go well. But for my experience, Sam was a good addition to the squad. He played well. I think you've got to remember he played well in those games for England. And no, I don't think so. No, I mean, I would support that decision.
Now, we have heard in the past about the eroding chemistry between Sam and then a number of players in the squad. So as a captain, did you find that drama kind of hard to manage on top of the pressure of the World Cup, or was it very much between Sam and those particular players?
In all honesty, and maybe this is bad on my reflection, maybe I didn't know my squad as well as I thought I did, that I only found out about a lot of these things when I heard about them on a recent podcast, which again is maybe bad from my perspective, that maybe I didn't indulge in certain groups or know everything that was going on. But I think with any setup, and I think, look, there's different things. Do players in a squad have to like each other? No. Do they have to respect each other and work hard for each other? Definitely yes. And I think there's a fine line if things are going to cross. But I think there was a huge amount of respect for each other and the players that were in there. And I think in whether it be in club setup or international setup, you've got 30, 40 guys. Guys aren't always going to have the same views or opinions or anything like that. And you do have little groups that will go for coffees, or young groups that will go play Xbox or whatever they do. And you do have little things like that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think when you come together, you train hard, you push each other, you are all on the same page, you are all pulling in the same direction.
Fair enough. Well, look, we will move on to a more positive subject. So you were 2 times Premiership Player of the Year and also won the league at Harlequins. So I want to know, how did you guys celebrate winning that title? Was it a big night out at, was it Infernos?
No, we went somewhere nicer than that time. Look, unfortunately, that's a long time ago. Look, it was an incredible period and something we always wanted to try and get back to. Unfortunately, we never got back to there under my time with the club. And hopefully the guys, they're going pretty well at the moment. They can get back there. But yeah, that was the best thing about that day, and was primarily the week before. We were sponsored by Etihad at the time. And it used to be when there was a semi-final, then there'd be a week off for the European final and then the Premiership final. So in that week, they said, look, if you win the semi-final, we'll go to Etihad and do like a sponsored thing and do like a warm weather training camp. And the thing over there, because it was so hot in Abu Dhabi, we couldn't train past 10 o'clock in the morning. So for the rest of the day, guys were playing golf, they were going to water parks, we were on boat trips, having barbecues, all these type of things. And that was just the final kind of group cohesion, group bonding we needed going into that final, because a lot of guys played a lot of rugby then. And then walking over to the stadium, the fans had arranged to do a guard of honour, which they kind of, whenever we play at Twickenham main stadium, we park at the Stoop, which is probably a 600-metre walk, and we kind of walk over the bridge and over, and the fans had arranged, and you could see your friends and your family. And there were definitely some teary guys. And I think when you go into games, look, you always know what it means to people, but it's not a bad thing being reminded every now and then. And that definitely gave us that. And as you can imagine, yeah, after the game in the change room, there was a lot of celebrations. Nick Easter somehow got a cigar. He claims he had it in his sock the whole game, but I think someone bought it for him, but who knows with him. But yeah, we went back to the Stoop. They had arranged the bars to be open. There were thousands of people on the pitch. Nick Easter was doing one of these songs he does where he puts people's names into it, and the fans were loving it. And they're the good moments. And then kind of everyone went home. And then I think we went into Kensington. All the players, all the partners, all the office. Yeah, we just went there and had a pretty good time, as you can imagine.
Now, Jamie, when you moved to Quins, were you worried about getting along with the England contingent that you'd battled against for all of those years previous?
Oh, it was amazing experience. I mean, there was actually a few months between them. I went to study a postgrad at Cambridge, so I had a few months off pro rugby altogether after the World Cup, and it was my first time playing in the Premiership. I played kind of the old Magners League, which is now the Pro 14. Then went to play at Racing for a few years, and yeah, I love the Premiership. The Premiership's an incredible competition, and I was really looking forward to playing it. And I enjoyed my time at Harlequins, and it just happened to coincide with going to play alongside 3 or 4 lads who we beaten in a group game at the World Cup at Twickenham. Yeah, certainly one of the highlights of my career when I reflect on it. But as I said earlier, for every team that wins, a team loses as well. And it probably took me to go and mix with these lads at Quins to really kind of feel that empathy. If the shoe had been on the other foot and I'd lost the game playing at a home World Cup in Wales, I would have been devastated as well. So look, it was great. Robbo, Danny, Mike Brown, Marla, these lads, and it's great to see a lot of those other Quins lads go on to earn test honours, James Lang being one, Marcus Smith, hopefully being another who goes on to do well, because these young guys were kids when I was there, when I moved there in 2015. I always remember turning up to Quins and one session, Chris, you probably remember it. It was, the deepest, darkest December or January, and this young kid turned up, school kid, and absolutely carved us up in training. And it was Marcus Smith. And we didn't see him for the rest of the year. And then he rocked up to pre-season the following year. And they gave him a contract. They signed him up. They obviously had to wait for him to be a certain age, but I think he turned up first of all when he was like 16 or 17. Absolutely unbelievable kind of rugby athlete, his footwork, his ability, and I really do hope, onto our conversation earlier, that he goes on to feature for England for a long time. But it was a great group. The way they approached the game, Connor was great. My first year was under Connor O'Shea. He actually signed me at the club. We had a good season. We made that final in Montpellier. We played Montpellier and Lyon in the final, which was brutal. I mean, with Challenge Cup, when you lose games of that magnitude, it's tough, isn't it? But we had, I think, a good group of us. Robert went to Monaco that weekend. We had a good blowout there. But yeah, I love my time at Quins. I reflect South West London. I lived down two roads away from Chris, in Wandsworth Town, and that commute out to Guildford every day, living in one of the best cities in the world, playing in one of the best grounds in the Premiership. The Stoop, when it's rocking, is proper. we play there on a Friday night, even Saturday afternoon when it's bouncing, is an awesome experience. And, very, very fond memories with very good people.
Well, look, we will move on. I want to talk about the Lions. So obviously, Lions are heading to South Africa in a few months' time. So, Chris, I want to know who has made your starting 15 for the first Test match.
Yep. I think last night. So I'm going to go with my old mate Joe Marler at Loosehead. I know he didn't play in the Six Nations, but from my point of view, going up against South Africa, there are no better. He's big, he's physical, he's pretty good. Hooker, I'm going to go Jamie George. I think he probably didn't have his best Six Nations, but I think now he's definitely going to be match sharp. I think he's probably going to play a lot more in the champ than he would have thought. And he wasn't starting for England when he started for the Lions last time. So I don't think that'll play a factor. I'm going to go Furlong at tight head. I mean, I think it's a battle between him and Sinclair, and I think with the way Ireland played in that last game, we'll nudge it forward for him. Mario Toje at 4, world-class player, has big moments in games, so I'm going to go him. One I'm not sure with, I'm going to go Alan Wynne-Jones at 5. I'm going to make him captain as well. I think the way he led, I think, and Jamie probably knows him a little bit better than me, the amount he's played, the leader he is. I think he has the ability to get the best out of people. He might not be necessarily the player he was, but I think that ability to get out, and he's still mixing it with the best. So I think him. Now this, I'm going to go Faletau at 6. Big carrier, good in the line out. I'm going to go Tom Curry at 7. I think he's England's best player at the moment, potentially. First name on England's team sheet. And then this is where I'm going to bring in Sam Simmons. I think on a hard pitch down in South Africa. Now we know they're going there. I think it'll suit him well. 9, I was a little bit unsure, but I'm going to go the Welsh lad Hardy. I think that the game against England, I think he was pretty good. I know he got injured after that, but I'm going to go for him. I don't know who else. Finn Russell at 10. I think the player he is and the stuff he can do is pretty special. I'm going to go Reece Samet on the wing, number 11. Dangerous, quick, scores tries. And I think speed scares attackers. And he's got, defenders, sorry. And he's got so much of it. I'm going to go Owen Farrell at 12. Controlled presence. Been there before, done it. Probably the best player I've ever played with. I'm going to go Robbie Hearnshaw at 13. Bring him in there. I'm going to go Anthony Watson on 14. Incredible player. Big presence as well. Bigger than people think he is. His footwork's incredible. And then Liam Williams at 15. I've always liked Liam Williams. I think he's aggressive. He's tough. He's abrasive in the way he plays, but most importantly, he's composed under a high ball.
Now, Chris, after 15 years with Harlequins, you decided last year to make the move to San Diego. But before you went stateside, you were asked to play for the Barbarians against England, a game that never was. There has been so many rumours about what did or didn't happen that fateful evening, which resulted in the game being cancelled. So can you set the story straight once and for all and tell us exactly what happened?
I can't, no. But we in all seriousness, we made some poor choices. Myself and the other 12, 13 players made some poor choices, and we got things massively wrong. And look, that's something we'll have to live with. It's not something we're proud of, but we've got our punishment. And this weekend is actually the first game I can actually get back playing. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to that. I've had to. We've got community work and.
Well, Robert, did you say so? This weekend's the first game you're allowed to play.
Yeah, so this is my first game back.
Stuff.
So yeah. I've been helping out the team, whether it be water or helping warm ups and stuff like that over here. So yeah, first game going to play Houston this weekend on the road again, or on the plane again. So yeah, it's been a long time, but as you know, when you have that first game, you're always a little bit nervous, are you? Like, have I done enough? How's my body? Are my contact ready? All that kind of stuff. And then you get that first tackle, that first carry, and then you're into it. You're into it straight away. But yeah, I can't wait to get involved properly.
With Texas being COVID, their attitude to COVID, obviously, you said is very different. Do they have crowds at games in Texas?
So yeah, they do have crowds. Yeah. So
so how many will you expect? How many will you expect at the weekend?
So I think I think this weekend they say they get about 2,000-3,000. So I mean, it is building. I think once San Diego were playing back in San Diego, they were getting between 4,000 and 6,000 a game, which is one of the biggest. They were probably, bar the final, probably around 5,000 mark, which is a good crowd. And looking at some of the facilities as well, are back in San Diego, some are better than a lot of UK based, and the pitch is lovely, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it's definitely a little bit different, and it's nice to be in front of a crowd. I've not been in front of a crowd since we had that test game in September, I think. But then pre that, I think it was March, the last time we had crowds.
Yeah.
So to have people there, and they definitely put an American vibe and an American spin onto games, which is good. And I think, look, there are things which they might go a little bit over the top, but they're trying new things, and I think they're not stuck in this is how rugby should be. We can't deviate from what rugby has always been. They have the framework of the great game, but they put the American spin on it, and they're trying to get more people interested in over here.
And when it comes to the rugby, mate, what are the main differences? Because obviously it's not going to be up to Premiership standard yet. It's safe to assume that. This is probably the wrong question, but if I was going to say, where would it differ? Where would it fall shorter than, say, Premiership standard? Is it the intensity? Is it the skill level? Is it players' understanding of the game? Where does it need to catch up to be at that level?
So I think the biggest thing over here, and at the moment, there aren't many guys who have played rugby their whole life. A lot of them have maybe tried to be in the NFL or NBA or something like that, and not quite made it that far, and maybe picked up the game as between the 16 and the age of 20. Whereas we've, back in the UK, or most rugby places, have played rugby as our first love and our first game since we were little kids. So I think those little skills are slightly off. But what they do like over here, I probably didn't appreciate as much. They love the physical side of the game. They love hitting each other. They love the contact aspect, because it is.
So you regret signing now?
I was hoping it was going to be a little bit quicker and wider.
You wanted to play sevens, mate.
But no, it's physical. It's a quick game. They brought in like rules similar to, like, if you score under the post, it's an automatic kind of 7 points. So they just get back and kick the game to try speed it up and stuff like that. They're only having a maximum of 2 scrums in a row, because they don't want to have loads of scrum, because they want to keep the game moving and that kind of entertainment factor. So look, they are trying things, but in terms of level, because I haven't been out there playing yet, it's been tough for me to really gauge. But training, I've been impressed with. But again, I haven't played in the Championship back in England, so I can't really compare it to that. But I would say it is definitely below the Premiership. But I've been impressed with the standards so far.
Chris, what do you think the reason is for so many English players moving over to the MLR or the Japanese league?
And look, I've always been jealous of the experiences. I've always been jealous of what Jamie's done. He's played all over the world. He's done some incredible things. And even when I was moving here, I was speaking to him about that kind of experience. And now I've done this, I almost wish I'd done something else in my time. But I think in England, my goal was to play for England. I only ever wanted to play for England. And unfortunately with that, you've got to play in England. You have to play that. We don't have what the Welsh have in is it a 60 or 70 cap rule, or the South Africans do, or Australians and stuff like that. So that was always a massive factor. But I really am loving the experience. Like I said, there are some very good things, and there are some not great things, but it's part of that. And I've enjoyed living abroad. And a big one for me coming here is I'm very dyslexic. And I think for me to fully immerse myself in it, I think I would have struggled to pick up a French or a Japanese or something like that. And I think to properly enjoy an environment where you can all go for coffees and you're not just understanding every third or fourth word, you're fully immersed in it. Coming to an English-speaking place was important for me.
Have you changed your dialect? I know the West Coast have a very different dialect to the way we would speak. Have you found yourself slipping into that kind of language?
Yeah, man, California, man. California, smoking doobies, huh? It's legal in California.
I'm just trying to go with it. Yeah, I've said a couple of things. I said, because it was Easter, I was like, we got a bank holiday back home, and they're like, what? What's a bank holiday? So there has been a couple of different things, and playing March Madness with them, which is a huge college basketball thing over here, which is bigger than them. And I kind of gave my list back of the teams I wanted. And I literally just saw them all laughing at who I'd picked and just being like, but it is different, and there's different approaches to things. And look, hopefully I can help in a rugby perspective. I've been lucky enough to work with some great coaches and stuff throughout my time, whether at Quins or England. And hopefully I can help over here as well.
I love that. I'll just pick up on something Chris said there. Rugby gives you the opportunity to travel. And I was always one, I just thought, why would I stay in the same place my whole professional career? Like that? You've got a chance to travel the world here. Yeah, okay, you travel the world if you're lucky enough to play Test rugby and go and play in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa. But it gives you the opportunity to play for clubs in Japan or France or the States. I'm delighted for you, Robert, that you've taken that opportunity and you get to see the world through a different lens. It's brilliant. But we all know the only reason you've gone to California is post-rugby career in Hollywood, my man. What are you going to do after you finish playing?
Well, that's what Marla says. He thinks I'm trying to be the next Vinnie Jones.
Yeah, I agree. I can see you in that role. Maybe not the hard man that Vinnie Jones is, but you'd be Mr. Nice Guy.
You know what? I would actually like to. Joking aside, I'm not planning that, but I would actually like to be an extra in something, just like walk past or get a coffee or something. I think that'd be a cool experience. And yeah, look, it is very much. I don't know what the future holds. We got a 2-year deal, and the other reason for coming over here is it's only a 6-month season, including pre-season, so it gives me plenty of time to plan for that next stage of life, whatever that be.
Will you come home also, then, in the off season?
I'll probably come home. Yeah, I'll probably come home. I think this year. But yeah, it's just trying to enjoy it. Like I was a bit jealous I didn't learn to surf in San Diego yet, and in Vegas in the middle of the desert, you're quite limited.
Must be a wave machine in Vegas, mate.
It's not the same.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, look, I've always, and the biggest thing for me was, yes, I probably could have done another year at Quins, but mentally it was the right time. And reading CJ Sanders' thing, and I'm sure you know, Jamie, as a player, you just know in itself, and it's something hard to explain, but you know when the time's right to move on. And I knew there was a lot of good back row coming through as well. And also I didn't want to be a player who's playing every now and then and stuff like that. So for me, it was about using rugby as a vehicle to take me somewhere incredible. Like hopefully it was California. It's now Las Vegas, which is a strange. And now we're going to have a baby in Las Vegas, which I tell my wife that if it's a boy, we call it Elvis, and if it's a girl, we call it Presley. She's not too keen on it for some reason. But yeah, look, it's definitely a different experience.
Is there any chance of you moving back to San Diego, or what's the story?
No, we're here. So yeah, we picked everything up. We're training here. We're living here.
Okay.
Yeah,
and that's definite now for the next few months. It's all Vegas.
Yeah, as far as I'm aware. Yeah, but as things do in America, they change quite quickly, and because we don't actually, we're on the road again, and I don't think we actually have a home stadium here yet to play at.
Okay.
So you're staying in a hotel?
So we're in like serviced accommodation. So we've got like our own kitchens and 2-bed places.
I was going to say, have they put you up in the MGM Grand or something?
That'd be nice.
I was kind of hoping that, but yeah, not to be.
Bellagio.
Well, Chris, what is the rugby culture like out in the US in comparison to, say, Ireland and the UK? Do you guys get to have nights out together, or has COVID kind of put a stop to all of that?
Well, we haven't been out, but yeah, there's definitely probably a more social scene than the professional game back home, if you get my drift, and enjoying it. And they do, when you go to games, it's very much, because there are crowds now, it's very much a tailgating experience. So they get there, they all get their games out, they have bands playing, and because it's, well, over on the West Coast where we are, it's all quite warm at the moment, so everything's outdoors, which is quite nice. And from my understanding, it's very much about the experience. It's not just about the sport, it's about kind of what goes with it. So they do things like, when we play England, they have fireworks after the game every week and stuff like this, and they try to make a real kind of spectacle of it.
I think, in fairness to the Americans, I think they do sport really well. Like, because it's not just the game, like you said, it is the whole experience, and the tailgating is on my bucket list. I just haven't got to do it yet, but I will get there. Well, today we are back with our partners Manscaped, who are the best in below the belt men's grooming, for another installment of Cut of the Week, where we'll be asking our panel to choose the best moment from the previous weekend's action. So Jamie, of all the great Women's Six Nations and European rugby we saw over the weekend, what goes down as your Manscaped Cut of the Week?
My Manscaped Cut of the Week. God, tough to choose from. Amazing weekend of European action, but I think Munster v Toulouse, minute 67, the game on a knife edge, and Toulouse's try. Dupont ends up scoring the try, but the footwork from Mathis Labelle was just outrageous. He's done JJ Hanrahan on an in-out in a space of about 2 meters. Just immense footwork. So that for me, Manscaped Cut of the Week.
Yeah, it was a tough L game for Munster, but that was a class piece of play for sure. Well, thank you, Jamie. And guys, don't find yourselves being left out and join over 2 million men in using the #1 grooming products worldwide. Receive 20% off all of their incredible products and free shipping if you use the code Offload. Your crown jewels. Well, thank you. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Chris.
No, pleasure, guys. Good to see you both.
Mate, Tom, the very best with the birth of your little firstborn as well.
Best of luck.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. Take care. See ya.
Cheers, bud.
Right, well, on that note, that is it from us. Thanks to Chris Robshaw and Jamie Roberts, and thanks to you for listening. More offloading next week. Make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts so you'll get it as soon as it's released. Leave us a rating and review if you can, and don't forget to check us out on YouTube as well. Thanks, guys.